Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Friends, before going into the details of the war, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to my channel and turn on the notification bell. Please support by subscribing and turning on the notification bell. We are a strong community. How state propaganda is driving Russia's genocide of Ukraine. Russian propagandists call to drown Ukrainian children, send Ukrainian teachers to the Gulag, and obliterate Ukrainian civilian infrastructure. The Institute for Mass Information dissects statements of Russian propagandists in the light of the trial of Felicien Kabuga, the propaganda chief of the Rwanda genocide, and explains how Russia's genocidal rhetoric against Ukrainians primed the invasion and how it is escalating with every passing day. Russian propaganda is considered a key weapon in the Kremlin's war against Ukraine. Since Russia invaded Ukraine on the 24th of February, the Kremlin has used its control of the news media to justify its war as defensive, a necessary response to Western efforts to destroy Russia. On the 20th of October, in his TV program, The Antonyms, on RT Russia, Kremlin propagandist Anton Krasovsky called for drowning Ukrainian children and burning them in their homes. Krasovsky's fans and Russians, who regularly watch state-funded Russian TV, were not surprised by his violent calls. In January 2022, Krasovsky had already threatened to burn Ukrainians on Vol. Kreshchatyk along with the Ukrainian constitution. After the Vinnytsia missile strikes in July 2022, which killed 23 people, including 3 children, Krasovsky firmly stated that Vinnytsia is not enough, and voiced his hope for a final solution. A real, military one. Ukraine's Institute of Mass Information, IMI, underlines that genocidal rhetoric against Ukraine and Ukrainians is commonplace in Russian information space. TV and radio programs voicing statements similar to Krasovsky's are not an exception, but part of Russia's sophisticated propaganda system. Krasovsky's comments sparked outrage inside and outside Russia, and he was temporarily suspended by RT editor-in-chief Margarita Simonyan. Krasovsky apologized, justifying his behavior on his Telegram channel. "Listen, I'm truly embarrassed that I somehow didn't see the limits. About the children. But it happens like this. You're in the middle of a broadcast, and you get carried away. And you can't stop." IMI experts have analyzed how often Kremlin propagandists call for the destruction of Ukrainians and why the Krasovsky affair is actually a pattern, and not at all an accidental occurrence. Moreover, since the start of the full-scale war, the rhetoric has changed, becoming more virulent and aggressive. Genocidal rhetoric incites people to carry out such actions. The number of victims during the genocide in Rwanda in 1994 is about 800,000 people. Basing their arguments on the indictment dated 3 January 2021 against Felicien Kabuga, the Rwandan multimillionaire and primary financier of the Hutu extremist outlets, Radio Télévision Libre des Mille Collines, RTLM, radio station and Kengora magazine, IMI has transposed the definitions to the context of Russia's propaganda discourse against Ukraine. They include direct calls for the destruction or commission of genocidal acts, such as strikes on civilian infrastructure, kidnapping of Ukrainian children, extermination of Ukrainians. Using euphemisms, softening words or expressions to conceal what is really happening and downplaying the scale of the tragedy and the nature of war crimes, as such. Russian propagandists have developed a whole new discourse to describe the invasion of Ukraine, justifying that Russia was only protecting its citizens and territories. "If we don't kill them, then they'll kill us, we had no other choice." Euphemisms dehumanizing the victim group. Rwandan radio called the Tutsis cockroaches that must be destroyed. Russian propagandists call Ukrainians Nazis, fascists, rats, worms, that must be eliminated. Sacralizing war, using religious narratives and theological concepts. Justifying crimes through so-called good intentions, which are blessed by religion, church leaders. Using epithets such as a sacred war, in Russia's case, desatanization of a soulless Ukraine. Ignoring genocidal calls in official statements. The Russian media seemingly ignores such discourse, thus condoning and inciting the Kremlin authorities to continue favorable, or neutral, media coverage of genocidal-type acts that have been committed. Rwandan radio glorified violence and attacks against the Tutsi, celebrated the killings, glorified the killers and encouraged them to continue. Similar rhetoric can be found in Russian media. Lack of balance and impartiality in media content. Incitement to commit genocide can be direct but also implicit, that is, the context of media discourse must be taken into account if it is not a blatant call to kill and destroy. The role of Rwanda media in inciting genocide was legally recognized, and the prosecution also mentions the use of psychological preparation of the population to commit genocide, incitement. British lawyer Philip Sands, who has experience in the International Court of Justice and the European Court of Human Rights, states that he sees obvious signs of Russian genocidal rhetoric towards Ukrainians. After liberation of Kherson, threat of enemy ground assaults on Mykolaiv, Odessa reduced. Bratchuk said there were 21 Russian ships and boats deployed in the Black Sea right now, including 2 cruise missile carriers with a total load of 16 missiles. He warned the enemy might seek compensation for its defeat in Kherson Oblast in the form of missile and drone attacks. He called on citizens to not ignore air raid alarms. However, the night of November 11-12 was quiet in Odessa Oblast. Bratchuk said counter-sabotage work is going on in the region, and several people have been detained. The birds that were caught are big, he said, promising to reveal more details later. It isn't worth it to work for the enemy, he said. I warn everyone who may consider it. Collaborators should be ready. Punishments are waiting for them. Court, prison. Also, it depends, heavenly punishment sometimes comes earlier than expected. Spokesperson once again called residents of Odessa and the region to save electricity, to avoid spreading rumors, and to trust only reliable sources. A day earlier, on November 11, the Ukrainian army entered the key southern city of Kherson, which had been occupied since the first days of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, which started on February 24. Ukrainian flags are now flying in the city and near the city administration building. Days before, the Russian flag was removed from the city administration building in Kherson, sparking speculation that Russia was about to retreat from the city. President Volodymyr Zelensky officially announced the liberation of Kherson in the evening of November 11. He warned that not all of the invaders had fled the city, and said that the Ukrainian army continues its work to remove them. Ukraine's Ministry of Defense has said the clearing of the city of Russian troops and saboteurs could last several weeks. As of November 12, the Ukrainian army had liberated from Russian occupation about 3,000 square kilometers, 1,160 square miles, in the south of the country. The General Staff reported that its troops have reached the Dnipro River in several places in Kherson Oblast. Early, Russian Defense Minister Shoigu and General Sergei Surovikin announced that their troops were to regroup on the other side of the Dnipro, and the order to retreat to the eastern bank of the river was issued on November 9. In the morning of November 11, the Russian Defense Ministry reported the full withdrawal from the western bank of the Dnipro River in Kherson Oblast. They said about 30,000 troops and 5,000 pieces of military equipment had been evacuated from the part of Kherson Oblast liberated by Ukraine. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel. See you in the next video.